Hey everybody, this is Savraj Oria here from the Distro Boss Podcast. I'm on today with Vikas Malhotra. He's the owner and CEO of a platform called IWI.Earth. It's a freelancer platform very similar to Fiverr and Upwork, websites apps I've used before in the past. I'm sure people are familiar with, but this one has a bit of a different take in terms of keeping money with uh, the gig holders and the freelancers within the app. And also, I think it's a bit of a one-stop shop in terms of how it can help build people's skills into an actual business too. So we'd love to hear about that, but also your journey as well into sort of creating this. When was your aha moment that this was going to be the right industry to get into? How do you build a software platform like this and then sort of scale it up? So Vikas, could you start off by just giving us a quick intro to who you are and the business itself?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, hi. We call it EV, right? That's the word for it. And because I originally come from India, I did my education in India and then I left for a job in the US. So the last 20 years, I have worked across the US and lots of countries in Europe, and I have seen different cultures and the way different businesses operate. Um, and and about 2 years back, or maybe a bit further than that, right in the middle of COVID, I decided that it was time for me to make a leap into starting my own thing, and this is where I am now. So in terms of my exposure or my experience, my primary focus has been within technology, you could say, on program delivery, and also focused on the world of mergers and acquisitions. So I have learned how businesses grow by scaling up, by acquiring other people. So that's been my specialty. But EV is completely different. It has nothing to do with what I had been doing. And it's because of an opportunity I saw. So that's why I'm here.
Okay, so you saw an opportunity. You were in essentially a day job that you're saying has nothing to do with this. This is
Yeah.
different. So, but you had exposure to like the corporate world, is what you're saying. Sound like mergers and acquisitions. You're looking at businesses buying each other out, chopping each other up, downsizing, cutting off the fat, selling them. Mergers and acquisitions is like people just sometimes just say that phrase, and it's like not everyone knows exactly what goes into that. I've seen it a lot. A lot of time in action, it's you buy a company, you cut off the fat, which basically means firing a whole bunch of people, keeping some of the core assets, and then positioning it again for a sale so that you can make money in the equity. And it's like mergers and acquisitions is a very difficult space to be in, but it's a very profitable space to be if you're in employment in that world. So for you to take this leap, you must have seen like a really big opportunity.
Yeah, I had what you call an aha moment, right? So I used to work for a large French media giant called Lagardère, and they own the likes of Warner Media Publishing and the big brands like Harry Potter's of the world or Twilight and anything you can name of a lot of things. James Bond is their franchise, and um, the, you may not have heard the name, but about 17% of anything which is printed is owned by them. So they're large. And I was sat in the annual conference listening, and our chairman was talking about the growth of Amazon and the service industry. And he displayed a simple uh, slide which showed about the rise of e commerce. And it said that Western countries typically are, let's take the UK or the US, are 70% services and about 30% products, something that we all know. So what? And his point was that everybody's focused on products on e-commerce, but services out of 70%, only 14% are left are online, sold online. And mentally, I was just thinking that means 56% of services are still not touched by e-commerce, right? That means there's a huge potential. E-commerce has only just started because it isn't touching the bulk of our economy yet. And it's almost like a gold rush moment. I'm sat there thinking, what am I sat there doing this when half of the market is still left untouched? And I
And
actually
not many
grabbed.
places for people to go, really. I mean, you've got like just one or two different companies there that provide these freelancing services off, and they don't seem to offer that many. It's like I can't go there for recruitment help, or it's really just like building websites, getting help with AI now, which is a new flavor of the month. Then it's I can build like videos, imagery, anything to do with like the technical side of things when it comes to computers and stuff. That tends to be freely accessible there. But like the other stuff, the more sort of down to earth services that you might want,
It's
aren't
not
really available. Is that what you refer? Are those the services that make up
others.
that percentage?
The moment everybody starts thinking of freelancer, everybody thinks of a plumber or electrician, right?
Right.
And that's not the case. I think there's a simple thing that some people say, "Oh, I'm building a service app, so that means I should be able to get a builder or a plumber easily." That's the first thought that comes to everyone's mind. But that's possibly a small portion of the market. There are about 30 odd professions which are completely untouched by e-commerce. So I'll give you an example. Here are the first three that we're focusing on. So the beauty, health, and wellness industry. You take people like people who work from home on beauticians or do lashes or nails or do beauty care, people who are in the health and wellness, personal trainers, salons, nutritionists, huge industry, and hundreds of thousands of these people. And they have these little sites where you can go and book an appointment here and there. But would anybody know where to go, right? So that's just one. If you take other things like legal, accounting, financial services, they're all word to mouth. You have to search for something, you ask somebody, right? So the plumber and the standard home services, it's just a little use case. The bulk of our economy, of all the people doing work. I'll give you an example. If you had to book an MOT or if you had to book a haircut, where do you go? So you can't. No.
Google. Yeah, I go to Google and I type in whatever that service is and then my area, and that's kind of how I do it. Yeah.
And then you have to call somebody up and then you leave a voicemail and they're not around and then they get back and say, "Oh, are you free on Saturday?" But it's there for the taking. So what I'm saying is that the market size is huge. Now let me give you a little figure which will it astounded me and it actually got me thinking of whether I should do this or not. The number of freelancers in the UK is about 6 million. That's 20% of our workforce. If you look at the US, it's 57 million people. The total size of the freelance economy is $1.35 trillion between these two countries. And it's
Wow.
growing at 18%, right? So this is the biggest, fastest growing thing after the crypto boom. So
Wow.
yeah.
So this is how people are going to start earning in the future. I mean, I think a lot of people are like worried about, what AI is going to do to their jobs. You're probably going to find a lot more people trying to just monetize their skills like this. And get
So
into the gig economy, because I know a lot of people in my own space where they're working for companies, they have a bit of a concern about job security. It was a bit high at first with AI, for instance, and when everyone found out about Chat GPT, for instance, and but then it kind of like the fear dissipated a little bit, because okay, it's cool, but it's great, but we can see it being a problem down the road, but right now my job's still safe at this moment, at least. But I think people are genuinely worried about that, and a lot of people are trying to go into the world of entrepreneurship, and they're considering quitting a job and starting something up. There's a lot of like I'd say ideas out there which are just so, which basically makes the market very saturated. You've got a lot of these build a course online or that sort of thing, where we'll go into like Alibaba, for instance, and buy certain products in wholesale and set up a Shopify account. At least those are the kind of ads I get served when I hunt around the internet for stuff. That's what I see a lot of, and I'm sure a lot of people, it's the same for them too. So like, how do they monetize the skill sets that they have? You've got places like Upwork, places like Fiverr, where you can say, I can help build presentations, I can help with ghostwriting, I can help with copywriting, I can help with building your website, and that sort of thing. Where does your app or software kind of change things there? What makes it different?
okay, so the first thing is to look at what AI is currently doing for people, right? So AI is a new thing, right? And I think it'll probably take a decade by which it becomes understood and established, right? So anything which is new, people are always worried about, right? So let's look at what AI is doing for people today. So the first thing it's doing, it's being used by very large businesses, corporates, to make decisions. So what they do is that they have data, and the traditional forms of building management information reports, um, it's not really the best because it takes time and you have too much data to make sense out of it. So large corporations are using AI to make good business decisions. That's one. The second thing it's doing, and it'll sound funny, but it's helping kids do their homework, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's almost like
Helping
write
people cheat.
an essay on
Yeah.
this one, or it's right helping people make better CVs or write a better email. It's helping them do those sort of things. So it's almost helping as an assistant to come up and use the brain. So if you think about it, it's for individuals to do simple tasks. It's for large businesses to make decisions. But where we or EV are getting into, and this is going to, we are just about to launch a huge big marketing campaign for this, is that the best use case ever, which is going to be, is for AI and virtual assistants to help the small guy, to help the small business. So the fact that AI is going to make everyone redundant and it'll just do away with all jobs is a myth. I think that the best thing that can ever happen to small businesses is AI and virtual assistants. And we are just about to launch something really, really big in that. So I welcome it, but it needs education. So somebody has to go and tell these people to say, don't worry, this is how you can monetize it. This is how you can make money out of this, and that's what we're just about to do.
Okay. And so that, I guess that's giving people a lot of access to the world of starting up their own businesses, because if I can get an assistant like that, I mean, it definitely helps, when it comes to just producing documents in business, when it comes to just, yeah, when you send emails to, sometimes when you're putting together a rather large email and you can have AI come and spruce it up for you. I've certainly done that in the past. It helps. It definitely helps. It is like having a proofreader
Yeah.
in the office. So it's got some early use cases, and it's going to consider. It's kind of like how crypto was, right? Like when everyone's like, "Oh, it's going to take over the fiat currency, and you're not going to have any real cash in your pocket anymore." And it certainly has this initial surge, but then like it tapers off a little bit because the world has to kind of organize for it. And I think the same thing is going to happen with AI. Like, yes, we're definitely going to use it. Like cryptocurrencies are still very much there, and we still tap into them here and there, but it hasn't actually replaced my main form of currency yet. And it won't for a little while longer, I don't think. It still has to kind of establish itself and establish trust. And I think AI has to do that too, right? Because it feels like when you're dealing with AI is smarter than you, like in terms of its resource. So it's like, it's going to be a while before we have full faith in it. Yeah, it might help you with your homework, like it'll get you through like a couple of basic level, or even more complex. I mean, I know people have passed the bar exam with it, but it can help with like taking information and dumping it, but and organizing it. But yeah, before it comes into the world of business in a huge way where it replaces tons of humans, the meatware behind the software, essentially, it's going to be a little while, I think.
I think the whole question of trust, fake things happening, I don't think it's an issue. I'm more worried about actual humans creating problems than AI. So if you look around, it's been going on since whenever you can see it, right from the fall of big corporate giants or companies defrauding others. Humans have been doing it to each other for a very, very long time, right? And AI, for that matter, doesn't have an evil intent. It's what you use it for, right? And
Right.
humans do it either way. So I don't think it's an issue. I think there is a good thing out there, which is that at least it's recognizable the fact that it's being done by AI or something. These things will always happen. Mankind has been, the Greeks got into Troy using a Trojan horse or whatever they did. They've been doing it forever, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So
Like how much does it play a part in your platform? Like, have you tried to build it into
So
the app itself.
we are releasing a version which is we are literally like 2 weeks away. I'm that excited about this. And this is the way we look at it. So let's take the standard marketplaces. What standard marketplaces do is that they'll say, here's a platform, please come on and you can trade here. This is what a marketplace does. Right? And the current models of marketplaces are what you call punitive. So they charge a percentage of the transaction or a subscription for people to operate. And this is where us as a company or EB believe that the world has changed. So if you look at our journey of why we have reached here, and I'll come to the AI part next, is that the world before Google, Facebook, and Spotify was that was the world of middlemen, right? So you say, I introduce you to this person, and for that, I'm going to take a commission. It still works. It's what you call trading. Right? Trading has been doing that. But I think with the coming of technology, those layers are being cut. And our question in EV is just because I'm putting two people together to talk to each other, it doesn't mean that I should be charging them. And I should be rewarding them because for a marketplace, and it's a very difficult way of looking at it. Why should I charge them 25%? Why can't I reward them for coming on?
And that's
Well,
like that's what like Upwork and Fiverr, that's pretty much what they charge, right? I mean, as whenever I pay for freelancers using that, I've had people like circumvent the system in the past plenty of times actually. Like they'll do the first job with me and then they'll say, hey, can you pay me directly to my PayPal? you know, because they're trying to avoid that fee.
so if
And
you look at the way Google or Facebook do that, or Spotify, they encourage people to get together, right? So this is
right.
what we call a network is. A true network is where you allow people to get together and talk to each other, right? And then you'll say, but the whole question of monetization
Yeah,
comes in.
how do you keep something that like that alive? Like how do you get paid?
So if you look at this way, your use of Gmail or Google Translate or Google Maps is free, isn't it?
Right.
Still one of the richest companies in the world. So the thing there is that there is a new and this is where my awakening in the whole thing has been, and this is the reason I've got into this, and that is that in the new world which is coming slowly, and it's everywhere now, the product by itself is not the product. Your customer is your product. Your customer carries 500 pounds or 1,000 pounds in his pocket and 5,000 pounds in his bank, right? He is the or she is the product. Don't worry too much about making money out of your own product because the idea is, and this is more true for marketplaces than standard products, is that when you have a community, you can monetize the community. You can offer them other things and offer them value. And I'm not talking about advertisements, affiliate marketing. There are a lot of things. So I'll give you an example from EV. So of how we want to distinguish ourselves from any other marketplace. So you're a graphic designer or you're a freelance petition. You come onto the website. I don't want to take. You're going to make 20 pounds. If I take away 5 pounds from that, that's not going to leave a good taste in your mouth. There is no customer loyalty there. That's why they approach you separately because they don't want to ever go back to the platform. But on
Right.
EV, I'd want you to come there and make your 20 pounds and keep those 20 pounds.
So
And
you're not taking anything on that transaction. So you're
and
just
after
connecting
that,
these two people. They've someone has a need, someone has something to give, and you're allowing that to take place freely within the platform. I guess that makes it more sticky too. Like people stay with you.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you take the life cycle there are of any enterprise, any business, whether it's a freelancer thing, there are three things in it. The first thing is setting up a business, right? So EV just does, I'm going to set you up, right? Which is what Fiverr do and all these other people do. And they do it very well. Don't get me wrong. I look at all these people and I take quite a bit of direction from them. But then there are two things that happen after. The second is to expand and launch. And the third thing is to operate, right? So those are the three things. You create a business, you launch it in a big way, and then you operate it, right? So the bit where we come in is to say, hey, come on to our marketplace, come there, and now we're going to help you launch. So if a beautician sitting in their house or a caterer or a mom who just wants to do something from their house, doesn't know how to expand or grow their business, this is where EV will provide tools for them to market themselves in a big way. And this is where our AI comes in, which helps them do that. And that's a service that we will charge for. But we will charge it at a price that they can never find it on the high street because we are doing things in bulk. So if I'll give an example, if somebody wanted to go and run a Google marketing or a Facebook marketing campaign, if you go into the high street and take up a digital marketing service, you're looking at about 500 to 700 pounds out of your pocket. On EV, we will, because we've automated a lot of that process and we have arrangements with firms who are doing it at a bulk discount, we will bring that price down by 30%. So not only can you set yourselves up, you can launch yourselves. And we will use AI to target the right customers and use data to say, really speaking, you should be targeting those set of people, these influencers, these markets, and actually grow them.
So this could be like if you're building. So if you're taking my freelance skill and you're are you essentially building a business around it within the platform? So you're kind of boosting it to become like a person's main revenue source. Like that could be what this becomes down the road to somebody. Okay, well that's a really amazing concept because that kind of does change it from.
Freelancers till now has always been thought of a side gig that you do. Oh, I don't want to stack shelves in Sainsbury's at night. I'd rather I know something. But if you look at it, 20% of the people have stopped doing the main job in the UK and they want to do that. So this is where we come in and say, we will help you do that in a very simple, easy way. So in our app, there will be a little thing called marketing package or boost your sales. And you click on that and it'll give you these tools which you can do and very easily sat in your house and launch yourselves. So that's the second part, which is growing your business. The third part that EV, and we're just about to launch that service, and we're literally about 10 days away from it. I'm very excited, is using virtual assistants to operate your business. Right? So I'm going to give you one scenario because all this sounds like lots of nice things, AI, VA, but a person sitting at home say, what does it do for me? So here's how it'll work. You come onto EV, you register yourself as a normal business and people can find you and you can do their lashes or whatever you want to do, or you can solve a legal case for them, or you can do their accounting services or whatever you can do, right? And then you earn 700 pounds from it from a month, just as a side gig, really not doing much for you, but you want to have the flexibility of living your life the way you want. You don't want a 9 to 5, you've got small children, you want to work from home, you don't want to commute outside, lots of things. And that's where EV comes and says, one, I'm going to help you launch this business so that you make enough so that you can let go of your 9 to 5 and make this a big business. And the third thing it'll do is that when you start getting hits on your profile, or when you start getting visitors, potential customers coming on, EV will help you grab those sales. This is how it happens. So our marketing package launches people, creates leads, as you call it. So a typical scenario, you spend 500 pounds, you can reach out to about 500,000 people with smart marketing, right? With a conversion rate of about 2%, let's say about 10,000 people, or let's say with even if you have a 1%, 5,000 people open your profile and have a look at it. And this is where the third part of EV comes in, which is to operate. EV will provide everybody or the people who are on the service to have a virtual assistant, your avatar of a salesperson sat there who will talk to those 5,000 customers. So you'll come onto the website, you go onto a Fiverr or you go onto an Upwork something, you just see a profile, but you come onto an EV page, and let's say it's Sav's page, right? Sabraj's page. And Sav is a fantastic everything. Sabraj is a fantastic interviewer, for example. That's not going that well right now, but yeah. And he's selling his services of doing podcasts. The moment you come onto Sav's page on EV, up jumps Sav's avatar, and he's chosen a salesperson, really smart looking person, comes in and says, "Hi, welcome to Sav's page," and it engages the customer, talks to them. So the AI is driving that avatar to talk to people and show them SAP services, show them his rate card, show them testimonials of what he's done, and engages a person, asks their names, and say, "What would you like us to do?" So we provide them with a workforce that you can't afford, and that's how you go. So
Okay.
what I mean
I
is
mean,
these
I
value
feel like
added.
that's really awesome. I mean, I think that's a feature that could really help. But one of the things that when I hear you talking about these freelancing platforms, we don't have that many, I guess. But do you remember when like job boards were new? Like you had the job site, you had like monster.com and a few of those big ones. And then, once I think people figured out how to make them, they started to kind of pop up everywhere. You had like all these like niche or types of job sites, like one specifically for sales, one specifically for IT, or some even like beyond that, like specific coding websites, like
Yeah.
just for that. And then you ended up having like the aggregators, the one that kind of fits on top, like the Indeed, which is in the beginning. I know they've changed their model a little bit now, but in the beginning, they ended up just pulling from all the different jobs from all the different job sites, and then you would just have this one list. It was kind of like the Google just for job sites. How do you think that might have a play with the market that you're getting into? Because you're building in a world that would probably go that direction, because it's essentially another marketplace after marketplace. I'm
Uh,
just curious. I mean, that's really your company's trajectory and the challenges that you're going to face going forward.
so think of it like this: Henry Ford created the first car. It didn't mean that the rest of the world said, "Oh shit, he's made the first car. Now why we can't make cars?" Because it's been done. 114 car companies exist today, right? So I think what we're doing is innovative. It provides something extra. But 6 months down the lane, yes, of course, people will step into the space and do that. And I think that if you start worrying the fact that there'll be the population of the world is 8.4 billion, right? And I was talking about just a freelance market between the US and the UK, which is about 66 million people. If you start looking at the countries where the growth is actually happening, India, Philippines, Brazil, South America, loads of countries in South America, Europe, to a point, yes. But if you take Bangladesh and Pakistan, and if you take a lot of Asia, Indonesia, there's a huge growth in this market. So the world has enough scope that probably about 500 EVs, even if they came across, they wouldn't touch the tip of the iceberg. So I think what we're doing is innovative. We are leading the space in it, and it's a question of establishing yourselves. And every year that we go forward, we will have to think of smarter ways to beat the competition and stay ahead. We already have products planned for next year. So the whole world of virtual reality will be getting into that. Uh, there's a big area in terms of gaming that we'll be getting into. So I think I'm not so worried. Of course, I think I would take it as a compliment if people started copying us. And
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I feel like it's a great idea. You've clearly started, you've built it. You've got like what the phase one version of it or the phase two. I don't know how long into it you are, and you could tell us. But I think what I really want to know is if someone's listening and thinking, how do I build something like that? I have an idea for a marketplace. I have an idea for building software. I have like you've got an interesting journey because you're really playing with the big fish. Marketplaces are kind of, unless you're like a niche platform, which you're not, you're clearly opening up to so many opportunities for people, lots of different services. So you are really going head to head with some of the bigger players out there. You are having to consider all those different markets you've just mentioned. You're talking about different languages in the platform. I mean, are you going into those markets? Are you having it set for that? Like, how do
oh
you
yeah.
build
So
like that?
we're launching with the UK and the US. We've already launched in the UK just recently, and we're launching in the US in about, let's say, about 6 weeks. And after that, we are looking at Brazil, Philippines, uh, and some of Asia, because we can only handle some. But the beauty of this thing is it's an app, right? So it's not like you have to build physical warehouses in different places and distribution systems or doing this. And what you have to have is the right social media strategy to take it out into those places, and that you can do sitting from here. So yes, we will. I think to answer your question about, I think what you're asking is, are you worried about competition, and are you taking on something that big? Uh,
It's not necessarily just competition. It's more like, well, yes, I suppose, yeah. But if I'm like, you know, someone who wants to start up a business and build an app that does have that kind of exposure, that has a market that big, like, how do I go about building something like that, factoring all those different things in? I mean, I guess I want to talk to you about how to build it. How do you build it and have the confidence of actually tackling a market like that? Because
I
lots of people have lots of different size ideas. You've got the people who have small ideas, who like the service driven stuff, and then you have people who say, I want to build an app, I want to be a trillionaire, I want to be have another Amazon type company. How do I go ahead and start creating something to that effect? Because if you're currently doing it, you are on that journey.
Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is uh, question yourself to say, are you actually building something that people want? So is there a need in the market, right? So you first have to assess the market and take it out there. Say, are you just creating something which is it's like a wannabe Amazon, or are you just creating something which is just a similar? Because if you're creating something just a similar which already exists, and is doing very well, then of course somebody will come in and you won't survive. So you have to do a SWOT analysis. You have to look through it and say, well, actually what I'm creating has some USPs and it's different and there is a need. So you have to do a lot of secondary and tertiary data research, first of all, to say what's out there. Just thinking that, oh, I'm going to build a marketplace, it'll do well. It's most marketplaces, 95% of them die out, right? For this reason, because they haven't done their homework.
And when you say homework, you're talking about, just to clarify for everyone that's listening, like primary and secondary research, we're talking about you directly surveying people, and secondary is like going in and actually looking at like companies out there, looking at statistics, looking at usage, numbers. Like, I know you've mentioned a bunch of statistics in terms of like the gig economy in the UK compared to the US and how it's growing and the amount of money involved with it. And then you've got your own direct surveys too. Like that's what you're referring to as far your primary, your initial.
Primary service don't give you that much. I would rely more on secondary and tertiary because, see, the primary surveys are more about look and feel. So are you getting a? So when we developed the app and we finished there and we said, oh, there's this button here or there. I think it's more like that. A primary data search doesn't give you a good enough sample size of, global economy. So in today's world, I think more of secondary data, tertiary data, so is more important. Um, a lot of these things are okay. So if you take the journey of any product, so not, let's not take marketplaces, let's take any product. There's a couple of things that you have to do. So let's talk about success tips, right? So what is it that can, so the first thing you should do is, having established an idea, is to have a set of people who advise you. A lot of people seem to think that they're very smart and they really don't have to listen to anyone, right? So I have a very strong non-executive board, uh, and it's got very senior people in it, and there are people who are very experienced from industry. And you should always have somebody that you're answerable to and who keeps you honest. Because one of the mistakes people think is that, oh, I've just thought of a smart idea, I'm not going to listen to anyone, I'm just going to do this. But they don't want to talk to anyone about it, just in case somebody points out a mistake. It's a human tendency. So you should have a steering group or an advisory group of smart people who have no vested interest in what you're doing, no conflict of interest or vested interest, but they are people who do care about you and they are experienced people. So that's the first thing you should do: somebody to question what you're doing, right?
So these people, they don't own anything in your company. They're just advisors, people
Yeah,
that you can call on and soundboard with,
yeah,
industry experience or out of industry.
yeah. That's one. Second, you should not worry about your idea changing, right? So everybody starts a journey saying, I'm going to make banana ice cream or whatever they do, right? But halfway through the project, you will soon realize that, oh, actually, that's not really good. I need to have some ripples with it or something or the other to make it better. So never be afraid of admitting that what you started off with may not be the best idea and you might need a mid-course correction somewhere or the other, right? So EV started off as something completely different, right? Although the idea remains the same, it
Right.
was more an API based bidding thing in which you companies release tenders and other companies will bid on it, and it was an open bidding platform. And I came to a conclusion that that's not what I wanted to do, because that's a business to business platform and I wanted to do something consumer. So bidding platforms have their place, but I started like that and then suddenly changed to say, no, that's not where I'm going. Right. So never worry about the fact that your product might end up being different. So be open to criticism and be open to change. Right. So if you say, I want to start a marketplace, halfway through it and say, "Mm, actually, I'd rather do that." Be open to that. That's
Yeah.
nothing. Um, the third thing is start from small to big. So we are not going to make EV something for everyone from day one. So we are targeting 3 or 4 industries, or what you call industry sectors or verticals, and we start from there and slowly spread out to everything. So if you try to do everything at the same time, then you fall over. There's another tip that I'll give. I don't know if it's somehow related to all this or not, but entrepreneurs or creating a new startup of these is a very stressful thing. So keep your family engaged.
Okay.
It might sound like a lot of people,
Or emotional support for like foundation and structure.
uh, emotional support, because a lot of businesses fail because 3 months or 4 months or 6 months into it, when things are going really bad and you are really stressed out, um, you will need someone's support to keep you going. It is not an easy thing. I've had days when I felt like, oh my God, let's just crap the idea. I was a director somewhere. What am I doing? And should I really be doing this? But you need somebody who believes in you and your close family to say, no, it's okay. Just if this is what you really want to do in life, keep doing it. And you'll be surprised how big that requirement is as compared to just business plans. Business plans can be searched.
Yeah, I think
ChatGPT.
that responsibility plays a lot in it too. Like you've got to have that, and I 100% agree with you. Like when you're starting a company, I felt, initially you don't think of the support network that you need, the emotional support net, because it's stressful. Just starting a company is stressful, and also dealing with the things that are thrown at you when you're actually in business. So not just the money making stuff, but the legal stuff that you have to face, the accounting stuff that you have to face. Even when you start bringing on people to help you, there's an element of that your time is then split with telling people what to do, and that in and of itself is a job, and it takes you away from your core tasks, and that pulls you away from things, and you've got a lot of like pressures on you, time pressures, time constraints, and it gets old. It gets old pretty quick when you're always thinking about work and you do need to be able to turn off and you can't. And, there's a point where you sometimes feel like cracking, like breaking. And then that's where I feel like family, not just parents and actual, family, like brothers and sisters, but I'm talking about like just, spouses, partners, whoever it is to you. Sometimes I just need to like be around my kids just to start enjoying the little things in life, just because I need to turn off from business itself. But there's also an element of like responsibility too. Like, I always liken business, like starting a business is like jumping off the edge of a cliff. Not like, people talk about the runway where a plane is like the length of the runway is the amount of money you have. And at the end of this runway, you either take off with your company or you crash and burn, right? I don't really like that analogy. I like the other one where it's you jump off a cliff and you're having to build a plane on the way down, because it's complex. It takes a lot of skill to be able to do that in a turbulent atmosphere that it is before you go splat on the ground. And of course, all the people that jumped off with you. So the responsibility that you have with your business partners, the people who are in fact vested in your company, or the people you owe a salary to, the people who are expecting, who are living off this business. That no safety net drive to actually make it is also, I think, a very big factor. And how much has that played in your own startup journey? Like you've talked about like non-vested partners, you talked about having family, but like what about when you started this business? how much of that played in? Like how much?
I had what you call a runway. So I said, this is the amount of capital that I'm going to use, and I'm going to take it to this point. So you also need what you call a finance plan for this, which is to say, are you able to sustain this? A lot of startups close because they can't monetize them. Simple as that. They might have the best idea, but they don't know how to monetize. So you do. That's where. Look, everybody isn't smart. Everybody doesn't know everything. Entrepreneurs entrepreneurs have great ideas, and they are the people who keep the world moving forward, right? All your Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, they're all entrepreneurs. They're all people, Elon Musk and everybody, and they have smart ideas, but they also rely on people around them to advise them to say, how does finance work, how does legal stuff work, commercial things work, and so you have to take advice in all these things. You also have to have, yes, money plays a big part. So that's why you have to plan your venture in such a way that you know when monetization is going to happen, when you're going to be able to sustain yourself, when to spend more, when to spend less. And like I said, rely on other people to give you that advice. You aren't going to be the if you were the smartest cookie who knew answers to all of these things, then you're a rarity, right? Most
Right.
people have good ideas, but they need help. They need somebody to keep them honest in this thing. Now,
How do you grow? So if you've got that support framework, you've got that infrastructure, you've got the basis of your business model there. Like how are you growing? Um how are you scaling a business like that? How does a little guy get involved and scale a business like that?
okay,
I suppose that answers two questions because that's for you as the business owner and also for the person coming inside of your company.
right.
Taking
So, so
advantage of the
there are
marketplace.
two here things. So if you think about it, I am solving EV is solving a problem for those people that I'm solving for myself. So I am creating, or not I, we. Uh, um, we are creating a platform in which people with entrepreneurial skills or people with ideas or people who want to grow have a place which provides them that framework. So on EV, you can come on and say, I just don't want to just do nails on the side, or I just don't want to bake a few cakes and this and that. I really want to make money out of this. But it gives you the infrastructure for finance, for legal, commercial, for setting up your business, for launching, marketing, advertising, influencer, social media marketing. All of this is available on EV for somebody to launch that. And after that, it even gives you virtual staff to run your business, right? So I'm solving a problem which I hope wish somebody had solved for me, right?
All right. So
So,
are you like able to like these are resources that you have, right? You built these into your system. So I guess you're able to just tap into them, I assume as well, then.
so my customers won't have that problem because we will give them resources to build those things. But I never had anything to go back to, right? And I think so. I I don't know how to answer the question, and I think it all boils down to the fact that you need to have the right. Uh, okay,
Well, I guess what I'm asking is this. Okay, so let's really like narrow it down. Like if if someone wants to get into business and kind of follow a similar path as you, they've got an idea to make a platform, whether it's a marketplace or whether it's just any other kind of SaaS product or something like that. They've done as much research as they can. They've done some primary research in that they've maybe contacted a client list or something and have said, what problem do you have that we can fix? And they get like an idea of what it is that they could build. They go ahead and have this concept built out. You've got the question of like, do you spend the money that how do you scale it up? How do you market it? Do you rely on taking income initially and just using whatever money comes into the business to market it, or are you going to look for external sources? Like, how do you go about it?
okay, all right. So I understand your question, and so there is a well trodden path in this one, and that is you first prototype something, right? And prototype doesn't always mean a software model, right? But whatever you're building, you make a small version of that first, right? And you try this out on something, right? So if you're saying that I'm building a supply chain, or I'm building something which is an advisory thing or something or the other, you build a small scale prototype of that thing. You take a couple of sample people who are potential customers and you run it through them, right? So your best answer will come through actual customers, right? So it's a marketplace. We did that. So last year, we launched EV in Croydon on a very small scale, right? So it wasn't fully built. It had like 60% of what it does or 50% of what it does, and we launched it in Croydon. We took up the
That's
actual
South London, right? I'm actually from there.
south of London.
Yeah.
And, and we tried it out on 50 people and got the feedback on to say, does this work for you? What does it do? And you get feedback from people to see if your business model is working. Software is easy. Software will work, right? Because you can program it and you can do things. But does your business model work? Do your routes to market work? So what you do is you build from small to big. You try something, create something small quickly, and then try it out, and you'll get most of your answers. From that point, you will know what works, what doesn't work, and then you slowly start growing. So it's an iterative process. And
I think that's what people have to recognize is that there is the entrepreneur in people that believes they can go ahead and start something up and stand on their own 2 feet. And then there's the actual plan that you have to make money. Like, does the plan match the entrepreneur? And I think that that's also a big factor there. And I think you're talking about that, right? Like, you've got to kind of build it up, because if you don't have the money to start up in that runway we spoke about, like, if you don't have that breathing space, like, you really have to have the plan in place, and it has to be a direct route to market. And what that means is you've got to have something to sell so that you can make enough money quickly enough to pay the bills at the end of the month, because you're relying on it to do so, and also build the business. I mean, is that where you just, I guess that, do you start looking for like larger deals, or do you go for like, because I know your business, for instance, is you know your, if I understand it correctly, there's these back end offers, like, I guess, like sponsors in some way, or you're offering things for a fee. Like, how do you structure something like that, or is it you just go for big deals?
no, so let's talk about finance here, right? Now, there are two types of monies which other people give you, or money you earn yourself, right?
Right.
Effectively, there's only two types of money. Uh, Money that, what tends to happen is that a new venture or something will take time to reach a break even point, or the point that is self funding, right? And most businesses suffer because they don't have that runway or the ability to monetize that fast or that quickly that they can sustain themselves. So what they do is that they turn to financing of the business, and they turn to people like angel investors or venture capitalists or something. Now, when it comes to investment in your business, if anybody who finances, or then there are tons of people out there who do that, right? um, do that, the first thing that they want to look at is that, fine, everything sounds like a great idea, trust me, I've seen weird ones, right? But anything sounds like a great idea, no matter how good a pitch deck you create or a presentation, because all that can be bought, right? The person who's investing money into you wants to look at a couple of things. One, are you have you actually done it and made a couple of bucks out of it? Have you done something? Unless it's the world, it's a cure for cancer or something like that, right? Nobody's going to invest in you unless they say, are you viable? Are you actually running? Can you show me a few, customers? Can you show me a bit of revenue? and
Yeah.
and and then they look at the thing. So there is no magic answer to this one, that you will just go and present somewhere, and somebody will just do this. Not going to happen. Focus on building small to big. So build something small, learn from it, and you don't have to invest all your time, or you don't have to leave your day job or something. You can work on these things. You can create something, take it out there, test it out with some people, see if that model goes, fine tune it, take it to a point where it can service somebody, and try to get some turnover through it. Let it work for some people. And trust me, it takes off from there. And then financing works. So this whole thing of, if you go on LinkedIn or if you go on social media, there's all these
All those
million
angel sites that people can go to,
you know,
and GoFundMe.
this and that. Yeah, you can keep doing that. But at the end of the day, if you were funding somebody, you'd want to know, are you making any money out of this one? Or can you show me something happening? Like on paper, everything sounds great, and 1 in 1,000 will strike somebody as a great idea because they think like that and they'll fund you. But the bulk of the people don't get funded like that. So create small prototypes, grow a platform small, push something through it, go out into the market. You might have to walk there and find customers or people that you know and get them to sort of process through it. And then it'll grow. And then you learn what works, what makes money, what doesn't make money. We are still, trust me, on EV on that point where I still don't know the right answer. Yes, I do now because we have tried three or four, five, six things, and some failed, some worked, some didn't work, and eventually we come to a point where I know this is what is monetization, but it takes a long time like that.
You got to start at the bottom. You got to start
Absolutely.
proving. Yeah, you got to start having that case study where you can kind of demonstrate success. If anyone's going to invest in you, I guess that's the most important thing. But okay, so I think if anyone's looking to get into that kind of world, I mean, even myself, I've been looking at building marketplaces myself in the past, and I've failed at it. I have. Populating them was one of the hardest things. You know, even when you get like the framework built, and you can have them built if it's a simple type of marketplace, like a job listing site, for instance, because you can get those on like WordPress and stuff like that. Like if you can, you know, I've tried to go down that road, but populating them is like the biggest challenge, because really that's the product. The marketplace is just a vehicle, because, you know, like you said earlier, like you're not making money initially on uh how many people, even if you have a model where you're charging people to post an opportunity, or if you're taking a transaction fee, like how, you know, the other freelancing websites work, you still need to populate it. Otherwise, you're not making any money. You can have the mechanisms to capture money, but if no one's on there, you're not making anything.
So,
Like,
yeah.
how do you populate?
So the issue, the problem that you're asking for here is called what you call the cold start problem. Right, the guy who somebody who's very very senior in Uber is one of the people who's been leading it, has written a book called the cold start problem. So I'd say read it. And the cold start problem is that how do you start something if you don't have suppliers, you don't have customers, and it's the same thing. If you have one, you don't have the other, and the cold start problem. Then that's what it is. It's like Carl doesn't start when it's cold. Yeah,
Yeah.
and there are different. The, there are different models of marketplaces, right? So there are some marketplaces that you have to populate by having the sellers and the buyers together at the same time, because if you can't do that, it doesn't. But for that, what you have to do is you have to read a little bit. Since time immemorial, there have been different types of marketplaces, right? So there are three key models of marketplaces. The first one is customer fixed. So this starts 3,000 years from now, which is called the Silk Route. So silk merchants, right the way from China, would travel on donkeys and horses or whatever across the Silk Route, and they would go in and their journey in Constantinople, and they'd stop in China and India and Iran, Iraq, and sell their wares. That marketplace was where suppliers were moving and customers were fixed. Right? So that's a model of a marketplace. It's also a marketplace. The
Right.
other, right. So who has adopted that marketplace? Amazon has. It's taken the Silk Road marketplace. Says, you stay at home, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to sell you the stuff. Right?
Right.
Right? There's parallel there. Take the other side. For thousands of years, the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, or you take the old market in Delhi or Marrakesh or whatever, is where all the traders come and sit, and the customers walk to them,
Okay.
right? And they say, we're going to buy something from you. So it's very supply stays fixed, but the customer travels to them. So customers
That's the
all
Walmart.
yeah. And so Walmart and your Tesco have taken that model to say, we're going to sit here and the customers are going to travel to us, right? Different marketplace. Then there is a third marketplace, the Uber. It says, the customer can be walking, taxi can be walking, and I have to bring them together so that who's within reach of each other, the nearest two people meet, and then they sell to each other, right? That's another marketplace. So you have to establish that the product that you're doing is which model. The same thing doesn't fit all everyone.
Right.
So it's not like a
I guess the
market.
second model there is like, if you've got the Walmart where you've got the big the big space where it's the traditional fixed structure where people have to come to you. I guess that's marketing, right? That's just traditional pay and display as much as possible with enough signposts around to send people to you, right? But then you've got like the first and the third there, which is how do you get so if it's the Amazon where it's like we'll bring it to you, you've got all, again, that doesn't work unless, and that kind of follows suit with the big physical location, because you're really just advertising a hell of a lot, and of course referrals and everything like that. But in a space where the marketplace is like a freelancer site, like a job board, you are having to really populate it. You really are having to. You've got to have both ends. You're not stocking it like a wholesale, like how Amazon would. You're not pre-stocking anything in terms of the opportunities that are listed on these sites, and you're not, and if you haven't got those, then how are you going to what are you going to advertise to the people coming in?
So think of it like this: you always have two variables. You have suppliers and customers, right? So again, go back to the same principle. There are three models there really. You either bring them all together and you say, okay, I'm going to shut you up in a room, and then you have to buy or sell from each other. That's what it is, right? Or the other one is, I only have sellers. I only have customers. I don't have both. So then, if you only have sellers, advertise your sellers, right? If you only have customers, advertise your customers, right? So you don't have to have all or both of them in the same place, right?
Right.
Amazon do, if you think about it, what does Amazon do? Amazon doesn't say, I'm going to wait for everyone to come together, then I'm going to sell it. No, Amazon says, Amazon is a seller-centric marketplace. Basically says, I've got tons of sellers. So if you open Amazon, it shows you. It doesn't show you customers, does it? It shows you
Right.
sellers. And then it says, I'm going to advertise my sellers to the rest of the world, and then they'll come.
Yeah.
So they don't fill it up with both. Amazon doesn't say, so let's say Amazon is opening a new line of things like chewing gum, right? And I'm saying we're going to start a new line of business called chewing gum. So let's do one thing. Let's get loads of Wrigley's and people in, and let's advertise to loads of people who like chewing gum in. And when they're together, we'll say, all right, you know, curtain open, buy. They don't do that. They're going to say, we've got tons of these people, sellers, we got there, and we're going to advertise to the rest of the world outside, and then those people will come and buy the chewing gum here.
Yeah.
So populated only with the seller side.
So if you can advertise heavy enough on both fronts, you'll be fine. But then, of course, you need to be able. I guess it's so difficult to start those things, right? It's like, where do you get the budget to?
Yeah. What does affiliate marketing do? It does the other way around. It says, I have loads of customers, right? Now, do you want to sell them something? So let's take the example of, I'll give you a good example of booking.com, right?
Right.
Anything. So booking.com says, I've got tons of customers on this site as well, because they're all been buying stuff from me, right? And then they
Right.
go up to somebody and they say, hey, do you want to sell insurance to them? So, yeah. So come advertise on my site because I've got 20 million customers on. So they only are monetizing their customers. They say, forget the hotel, right? So you want to sell them suitcase and luggage because they're going to go on holiday and they'll need something. So you advertise. So those people come, the sellers come to booking.com to advertise their stuff. So whenever you go on there, you'll see an ad for, oh, would you like to buy some, Samsonite suitcases or something, and say, hey, it's going for whatever. So that's the other thing. Their marketplace, they're monetizing their buyers, not their customers. So it could go either ways.
All right.
Yeah.
So
So
if you were to give one piece of advice to, because I think we're coming up to time now, but if you were to give one piece of advice to someone, I guess maybe the early version of you who just kind of started out in like obviously you've made mistakes. You mentioned that you've had some issues and you wish you hadn't made early on with the creation of your marketplace, and if someone else is trying to come up, like what would be the advice that you give them, or to the version of you from before?
just start. Today is the best day for everything. There's no such thing as I'll do this tomorrow. Today means you actually shut this podcast down and you pick up a piece of paper and start doing it now. And it doesn't mean that you start creating a team or software or whatever. Pick up a piece of paper and start writing what you have to do and say, I'm going to do this and do it today. Because it's like a disease. Anything in which you say that I'll do it tomorrow becomes another tomorrow. You'll never do it. Trust me, you'll never do it. If you want to do something, and people say, it's not the right time. Let's have the baby. Let's move house. Let's do this. Let my son go to grammar school and then I'll do it. Or when this happens. Oh, that's bollocks. Even if you're in the worst time, even if you're going through a tough time, whatever, if you have an idea, just forget it and just do it now, like in the next 30 minutes. And trust me, that catches on. Once you write it down, then you will talk to someone, then it'll take its. So you have to prioritize it over everything else. You have to be very selfish. Right? That's
Selfish.
only advice. You'll figure
Be
it out.
selfish. Make it happen. Force it to happen. I got it. I think I think that's important. All right. Well, thank you very much for being on here, coming on, sharing your story with IWI. I think talking about marketplaces, software like that with global ambitions is always going to be difficult because there's so many moving parts, and it's kind of hard to figure out what to focus on because what you have can scale to something absolutely ginormous, and make a tremendous amount of money. And I think there's so many things to think about, especially when you're starting out. If you're the small guy thinking, I want to build the next Amazon, I want to build the next, Upwork, it's certainly a challenge. And I think it's also a very expensive challenge when it comes to advertising and that sort of thing too. So look, like I said, appreciate you sharing your insights and sharing your experience. For more stories like this, like and subscribe.